I present to you Old School Runescape, a game many of you are probably familiar with if you were born in the 90s, but on the off chance you are not fully aware of what this game is, let me break it down for you. Old School Runescape is a lot of this and a lot of that. Occasionally it's some of this, but really it's mostly this. I'm kidding. Please don't destroy me in the comments, all of you hardcore Iron Man players. While the clips I just showed you were meant to tease veteran players, the skill grinding nature of Old School RuneScape is actually part of the charm. And yes, I am aware there are plenty of Old School RuneScape memes about mindlessly chopping trees as a core component of the game. But now that I've spent a considerable amount of time playing it for myself, I just gotta say, unless you really play this game, you just might not really get the charm of it all, which is really why I want to make this video. I want to show new players the beauty of this game while also giving veteran players a love letter, an opportunity to reminisce about their first time playing RuneScape while crying nostalgic tears about now being in your 30s. I really struggled knowing what to call this video. Sure, it's like a retrospective, but it's also a new player experience laced with history, a dash of unexpected emotion, a pinch of is it worth it dialogue, my first 30-day journey, and a catalog of moments that made me fall in love with gaming all over again, wrapped up into one very long video. So without making this documentary any longer, I present to you a thing about Old School RuneScape. But before we can do any of that, I want to lay the framework for this video. First, I am a new player, never having played RuneScape or any of its evolutions, besides an attempt back in 2020, but soon quit before I even made it off of Tutorial Island. And yes, we will get to that later. Secondly, this is not a guide, although some wisdom can be gleaned from what I did wrong during my first 30 days, although this information will be minimal, and frankly, better learned from the wiki. Thirdly, this video will cover retrospective material regarding the game. However, I am still a fairly new player, sitting just under 100 hours of playtime, and my perspectives may vary from seasoned players. In the event that you are a seasoned player and disagree with anything I say in this video, I would ask that you leave a constructive comment rather than being an unkept bridge troll because I mispronounced something. Fourthly, wait, can I say fourthly? That feels strange. Lastly, while this video will be heavily laced with enthusiasm and structured similarly to other love letters written to beloved video games, I will present obstacles new players may face, as well as criticisms of the game. All in all, this video will stay true to its intent, in that it is indeed a thing about Old School RuneScape. Okay, now that we've laid our framework, let's briefly talk about Old School RuneScape history. Old School RuneScape traces its roots back to RuneScape, a game first released back in 2001, developed by a browser-based MMORPG inspired by Ultima Online and EverQuest. RuneScape featured a medieval fantasy world where players could train skills, complete quests, and engage in PvP combat. Its early version, now known as RuneScape Classic, used simple 2D sprites over a 3D environment and was lauded for its accessibility and expansive world. RuneScape 2 dropped in 2004, bringing shinier graphics, better combat, and a golden era of peak RuneScape fun. This is between 2004 and 2007. But in 2007, Jagex axed free trade in Wilderness to fight bots, and the players rioted. Fast forward to 2012, evolution of combat arrived, turning RuneScape into something unrecognizable. Q 2013, Jagex asked if players wanted 2000 RuneScape back. 500,000 players screamed yes, so Old School RuneScape was born. It was meant to stay frozen in time, but a 75% vote system let the community shape its new future. Old School RuneScape became its own beast, adding new regions and raids, and now come 2025, its first ever new skill, sailing. Then came Old School RuneScape Mobile back in 2018, which brought even more players aboard through its now accessibility. And today, Old School RuneScape thrives as the perfect mix of nostalgia and fresh content. Turns out sometimes the past is worth reliving. So where exactly do I fit into this RuneScape history? Well, I'm glad you asked. Well, you didn't, but you're going to hear my sentimental story anyway. As I mentioned before, I'm a new player. Well, kind of. My history with the RuneScape franchise is special, to say the least. It all started back in 7th grade when a kid named Rasan was assigned to sit behind me in math class. Rasan quickly became one of my best friends and was the guy who cracked open the door to the world outside my sheltered little bubble. He introduced me to YouTube, Yu-Gi-Oh!, Naruto, and yes, RuneScape. He told me about this magical game that was free to play and ran straight from a website. No downloads, no hassle, just pure, unfiltered adventure. He scribbled the URL into my school notebook, and the moment I got home, I fired up the family computer and typed it in. What awaited me was unlike anything I had ever seen. I had no idea what I was doing back then, but that certainly didn't stop me from clicking the absolute hell out of some goblins. And then, well, disaster happened. My dad walked in. You see, I wasn't exactly allowed to play online games, especially not on the sacred family computer. My dad was convinced RuneScape would be a virus waiting to happen, so my journey was cut brutally short. But those 22 minutes of RuneScape bliss, well, they planted a seed that despite my dad's best efforts took root. Now, fast forward 21 years later, and that tiny seed had grown into a full-blown tree. And now here I am back in the world of RuneScape, more specifically, Old School Runescape. The journey has come full circle as I finally sat down to actually play this amazing game. Some games hand you a grand purpose the moment that you log in or start a new game. Old School RuneScape, on the other hand, drops you in the medieval fantasy world of Galenor. Or Gielinor? I'm not really sure, but it gives you a bronze sword and a dream, and then promptly leaves you to figure things out for yourself. There's no urgent world-ending catastrophe, no tutorial NPC holding your hand that drives you towards oblivion, and certainly no cinematic intro explaining why your existence matters. Yes, I'm looking at you, Final Fantasy XIV, but that's precisely what makes Old School RuneScape so fascinating. It isn't about rushing toward a predefined goal, it's about forging your own ridiculously chaotic and often deeply inefficient journey through a world that feels stuck between the year 2001 and some alternate dimension where time doesn't exist. At its core, Old School RuneScape is indeed a massively multiplayer online role-playing game, though calling it simply that would be underselling it. More accurately, it is a grind simulator, a dash of social experiment, and certainly a spiritual exercise in patience and determination. The gameplay revolves around 3 fundamental principles: train skills, make money, and just don't die in the wilderness. Every player's journey begins with skill training, a process that is equally parts satisfying, mind-numbing, and oddly therapeutic. Old School RuneScape boasts over 20 different skills, ranging from the obvious like attack, strength, and magic, to the delightfully niche like fire making, which is exactly what it sounds like, setting things on fire over and over and over again until you're better at setting even more fires. And whether you're mastering combat or crafting runes or cooking up genocide amounts of lobsters, progression is slow, but it is rewarding in its own unique way. The magic of Old School RuneScape lies in its ability to make monotonous tasks feel like monumental achievements. Spent 3 hours clicking on oak trees? Congratulations, you're now slightly better at woodcutting. But Old School RuneScape isn't just about skilling, it's also about questing, and that's really where the game shines. Unlike other MMOs that rely on repetitive kill 10 rat type quests, Old School RuneScape treats each mission like a self-contained story. One moment you're combining fish food and poison to mass murder a fountain of piranhas, the next you're watching medieval CCTV of an insane old wizard as he one-shots the entire bank staff over some loot. I mean, honestly, I just gave up trying to predict these quests, and now I just sort of allow myself to enjoy the insanity. Quests aren't the only quirky aspect of the game, however. Let's be honest, Old School RuneScape looks like a fever dream rendered in PlayStation 1 era graphics, but that's really the charm here. The world of Galenor or Gielinor is deliberately blocky, somewhat crude, and very unapologetically low poly, making it a nostalgic relic of a time when game developers had to work around serious hardware limitations. However, what Old School RuneScape lacks in graphical fidelity, it makes up for an artistic consistency and atmosphere. The game's bright color palette, whimsical character designs, and simply yet distinct environment gives it a uniquely cozy feel, something I've come to really appreciate the older I've gotten, and frankly, the longer I've played this game. Sure, I could be running the latest high-end graphics game on my computer, but for some reason, I am finding myself more attracted to experiences over the glitter, and I'm logging way many 2 hours in Old School RuneScape these days. By all logic, a game launched in 2001 should have faded into obscurity by now, lost to the ever-churning machine of gaming progress. But Old School RuneScape, I think, defies that logic basically at every turn. Not only has it survived time, but it has actually outlasted its own modern counterpart. While RuneScape 3 continues to exist, it's Old School RuneScape that's really remained the fan favorite, boasting a larger and even more dedicated player base. Its impact on the gaming industry is both subtle and profound. Old School RuneScape was one of the first games to prove that legacy servers weren't just a desperate cash grab, but a genuine demand from players who long for games of their past. In many ways, it paved the way for projects like World of Warcraft Classic, proving that nostalgia-driven gaming is not just a fad, it's actually a movement for a lot of players. Sometimes players don't want endless modernization, sometimes they just want to relive the magic of a world that once felt infinite. But does Old School RuneScape still hold up today? Is it worth it for a completely new player? Is the time sink actually rewarding? The answers to these questions are complex, although they are not undefinable. So I would like to share my new player experience in hopes of providing some insights on whether you should take the plunge into Old School RuneScape and what you can expect as a new player. But before we begin, I'd like to identify potential bias in the information that I am about to share. For you see, my first time playing Old School RuneScape was a super magical moment. I was living in Asia at the time, sitting in my office which had a sea view overlooking the Indian Ocean. I had the AC blasting and I was wearing my favorite gaming hoodie. Side note, check out my hoodie merch. I designed it myself. Links are in the description of this video. Anyways, it was raining and I had the whole house to myself, making my account and starting Tutorial Island under these cozy conditions somehow magical, and I believe this has imprinted on my brain, and now I think I'm actually in love with the game. I figured I should disclose that information before we dive into my personal account and experience with the game, as what I will be sharing is largely glowing and may be attributed to the environment I was in when I initially started this wonderful game. So what were my initial expectations of Old School RuneScape before actually playing the game? Well, I'm not sure I had any real expectations. I think I was just longing for an adventure that was quick to start and very easy to maintain, and one that had an experience growth that really fit with my schedule. And so far, Old School RuneScape has delivered far more than the standards I initially required of it. I believe the tipping point for me to actually take the plunge was a result of my friend Rasan planting that seed some 21 years ago. Also seeing Old School RuneScape on Steam, seeing ads for the mobile utility, and then ultimately getting burnt out on Final Fantasy XIV. This meant I was already in the market for an MMO, but was also longing for simplicity, which I would consider to be the perfect storm to be converted into an actual Old School RuneScape player. And thus my adventure began like most all RPGs and MMOs do: character creation. I wanted to switch up my typical dark and handsome build for an aged, wise, and sage type backstory, which I would now like to share with all of my viewers. Meet Lune Fang, an old and seasoned warrior turned vagabond after losing his family to an enraged demon that flattened his village. Unwilling to face the truth, Lune now travels to distract himself from the pains of loss, accepting almost any quest to simply keep his mind off the cries that haunt his mind. Lune now finds himself in the lands of Galenor, hoping to spend the rest of his years numbing himself with adventure until he finally finally meets his sweet end where he can once again see his family. Now that I've made you extremely depressed, let's talk about the simple joys of old school RuneScape character creation. It's extremely basic, as to be expected for this art style, but don't let that hold you back from investing time in making your character exactly like you want. I certainly took my time clicking through all the options and finding strange joy cycling through slightly different pixel shirt styles and colors. It's really cool how a game that is artistically so simple can still elicit a childlike wonder in the player. I genuinely felt connected to my player despite the stripped down graphics, and by the time I finished designing my character, I was immersed and extremely eager to jump into my brand new adventure. Which, speaking of adventure, the first hour of this game, if you've never played, I beg of you to cherish it. You will only get to experience starting old school RuneScape for the first time once. It's important, as I've learned, to simply embrace the game's pacing, as it may feel quite different than what you may be used to. But I do promise that if you trust the process, there is a true magic to be found in playing old school RuneScape. My entire first playing session really revolved around the tutorial, and literally just killing goblins over and over and over for hours. The tutorial itself is brief and runs you through the must-knows and then promptly thrusts you into endless possibilities. Literally, you are in full control of what, where, and why. As I mentioned before, I attempted to start old school RuneScape years prior, but actually quit during Tutorial Island because I got bored. And I do want to warn new players that this is a game that needs time to simmer. Don't expect dopamine dumps in the way that a lot of modern games structure the reward factor. Looking back, I deeply regret not sticking with the game and giving it a fair shot, because what I have been experiencing this time around is some of the most genuine fun that I've had in a while. Even when I log out, I am thinking of what skill I want to power grind next, or what area I want to poke around at, or what quest I want to pursue. Now, if you are a gamer detoxing from high dopamine intake, I will say this game is the perfect game to grind and watch anime or movies or podcasts, whatever you like, making the grind feel more of a journey rather than a game that demands full attention constantly. In fact, I'm fully convinced I can work my 9-to-5 job and still grind combat experience at the same time. However, this is not to say the game is casual in a holistic view. There are plenty of moments, especially in combat or puzzles, where I really needed to lock in. I think having this juxtaposition in gameplay actually allows players to play more often, allowing each game session to be uniquely tailored to the player's present capacities. That being said, old school RuneScape is not devoid of dopamine. In fact, the way that the game rewards the player is highly addicting. Getting a skill to a new level is pure bliss. There's just something about deforesting an entire region to level your woodcutting skill that, unless you experience it yourself, you just won't understand. Or like committing horrific levels of genocide to generations of goblins. Don't worry, they reproduce like rats. To simply improve your combat skills, there's just a joy to the simplicity that is just so addicting. But as a new player, that does beg the question, does old school RuneScape respect the player's time? LOL, no. If you truly intend to play this game, prepare to sell your soul, because you are going to invest literal months, if not years, of your life into this game, which, depending on your use case, could either be a selling point or a legit barrier in progressing in old school RuneScape. While this game is absolutely a skill grinder, the quests make the time investment worth it, as they are some of the best quests that I've done in an MMO in quite some time. They are quirky for sure, but it really works with the art style and the overall vibe of the game. Each quest that I've completed really feels like its own exciting story, and it's often full of funny dialogue and puzzles and really fun fights. Genuinely, I had so many moments of just pure fun while questing that I feel as though I was experiencing levels of joy that rivaled the bliss of my gaming time as a youth. Now, I won't spoil new players, but I will reference one quest in particular that I just adored. All I'm going to say is that it involved a spooky mansion, a chicken, killing piranhas, and a lever puzzle that might drive you mad. And the best part? I literally just stumbled upon this place and it opened up this entire mini story, giving me hours of unpredicted fun. As a new player, I will say that the slightly vague nature of Old School RuneScape, while charming, can be difficult for new players to know where to find handfuls of new quests, which is why I highly recommend using the wiki for advice. It has saved me countless times. I also recommend really embracing exploration and talking to NPCs instead of just blowing through areas. Really take your time to explore dialogue in each city or region. You just have no idea what you might uncover, and when you do uncover a quest like this, it is just divine. Now, I would like to take some time to talk about a pet peeve, and again, I want to admit bias. I was under the impression this game was completely free, as that is what I was always told by others. I assumed that if there was any paid elements, that it would be minimal or likely cosmetic. Again, this is my fault for not researching more thoroughly. However, I am sure you can imagine the feelings I had when I was repeatedly chasing down quests only to be slammed into an unexpected paywall that prevented me from moving forward. Again, this is my fault for not understanding the game subscription, and therefore my grievance lies mainly in the fact that my immersion was broken unexpectedly. That being said, I find the subscription is certainly worth it given the amount of time that you as a new player will likely have to sink your teeth in. And honestly, I'm happy to support games that offer value. However, for all my new players or seekers watching this, it's not actually required to have a sub to still have a good time. In fact, I think there's plenty to do before you even really need to consider a sub. Again, that's just my opinion. The other only grievance that I have with Old School RuneScape is the amount of times I misclick on things, especially while running or moving. Granted, the response I expect to hear is get good, and you're right, I'm trying, okay? I'm trying. Positive thing about Old School RuneScape game mechanics is that just about everything in the game can be controlled with just a mouse, meaning you can get really cozy while playing this game. Seriously, I dare you to really try playing Old School RuneScape in cozy clothes, one hand on the mouse, and watching all of my YouTube videos while you level skills. I mean, that is just peak. Seriously, please subscribe. Also, the fact that I can log out on my PC and immediately log in on mobile is just insane. This removes the need to be static and really makes travel so much easier, knowing that I can grind on a plane or a bus, unlike most MMOs that require me to be on a PC or console. Since we are talking about cozy vibes, I would also love to briefly chat about the music in this game, as I found it very pleasing to listen to for hours on end. Despite being a new player, the music and sound effects made me miss home, if that makes any sense. It made me feel nostalgic for something that I've never experienced. It brought about somber emotions that I haven't fully processed, like the fact that I live in Asia and deeply miss my family, and quite frankly, the innocence of my youth, which seemed to be remembered by the pixel art and the very old music styles. There's a strange old-timey aesthetic to the sound that just makes you feel like you're playing games in a different time altogether. Now, I'm not sure if anyone else experienced this, but at times, Old School RuneScape felt therapeutic and had a calming effect in the real world, where everything often feels chaotic. Something about the repetitive skill grind and its simple nature repeatedly grounded me as a human in a peaceful state of being. And maybe that's too deep for this video, but I thought I would share that. Also, a quick shout out to the Old School RuneScape community. You've been incredibly welcoming, incredibly supportive, and honestly, the resources like the wiki are some of the best material that I've used in gaming in a very long time. So I just want to say a massive thank you to this very, very cool community. Oh yeah, and the memes. Like seriously, play the game for 1 week and boom, now you've got an entirely new meme genre to binge. It's absolutely freaking gold. Now, this last section really is for the veteran players that are watching, as I'm sure they will find this part equally funny and nostalgic. I now present to you my journal. Yes, I took notes on the first few days playing this game as a point of reference and making this video, and I figured I would just read it to you as raw as I had written it. So behold, my Old School RuneScape journal. Day 1. I obtained a chef's hat, and though I know I objectively look ridiculous, I'm still oddly proud to wear it because I got it as genuine loot. I want to know why primal instinct drove me to commit genocide against the goblins without any real reason other than them being a literal XP farm. I like how the goblins just sort of watch as I slay their kin, like surely this guy is not gonna finish off my cousin and then immediately come for me. I'm just gonna stand nearby and watch. The last part of my first day one journal entry is a little bit confusing, seeing how I'm filming this video so long after actually starting my journal. My notes simply say, the map moment, which I can only infer the moment that I first realized just how insanely large this game is, and then also a real fear in combat against a scorpion. I'm sure I can find that in the B-roll that I filmed a very long time ago. And then the last note simply says, wizard scary. So not sure what that exactly means, but day one seemed to have a very large impact on myself as a gamer. Now let's move on to day two. Day two. I love the constant XP grind swap between grinds. I found a spooky house and got beat up by a tree. Oh, and then I forgot that I was playing an MMO. The puzzles felt like Zelda. Now for day three. I watched a bank heist. I found a wizard tower. I saw a massive demon. Was tasked with finding these beads. I learned I desperately needed the Old School Runescape wiki. I went to all these imp grinding spots, but no luck. Finally found a location that allegedly spawns them, but then paywall. So I canceled Final Fantasy XIV membership to take the plunge into Old School Runescape. Now for my conclusion. The game's slow pace, lack of handholding, and unapologetically retro graphics can be a tough sell for modern gamers, accustomed to the convenience and instant gratification. But for those who embrace its quirks, Old School RuneScape offers one of the deepest and most rewarding MMORPG experiences out there. It's not just about leveling up, it's about the journey, the strange community interactions, and the oddly fulfilling sense of achievement that comes from spending literal months of your life chopping down virtual trees. At its core, Old School RuneScape is a game about freedom, persistence, and the strange joy of very small and odd victories. It's about the long, winding road to 99 fire making, the desperate grind to afford that one piece of gear, and the sheer chaos of the grand exchange trade chat at peak hours. Every player's journey is uniquely their own, shaped by countless hours of clicking, strategizing, and, let's be honest, questioning their real life choices. And if you ever catch yourself staring at the screen after 6 hours of clicking on rocks mining XP, wondering what you're doing with your life, just remember somewhere out there another player is doing the exact same thing. So without further ado, welcome to Old School RuneScape. You'll truly never leave, and I welcome you home. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Share this video with your grandma and tell her I said hello. And I will see you all in the next video. Take care. Bye-bye.